What up, you guys? Welcome to another review of Video Creep. Today we're going to be reviewing the movie 3 from Hell. But really this movie should be called like 3 from Jail. A couple things to know about this movie just going into it. This is the third installment in Rob Zombie's Firefly franchise. It goes House of a Thousand Corpse, Devil's Rejects, and now 3 from Hell. Although the 3 that you may think this movie will center around isn't who it centers around. If you're anything like me, you love Captain Spaulding. And unfortunately, he's just not in this movie very much at all. The actor who plays Captain Spaulding just wasn't up to being in this movie a whole bunch. So if you're only going into this film in order to see him, don't get up in the first like 10 minutes. Another disclaimer that I feel should be said about this movie is that this is not a horror movie. Yes, there are horror elements, and yes, there are kills, but overall, and we've been seeing this slowly through the movies, 3 from Hell is an action film. And by and large, this movie is centered on the characters that are in this film. Us already knowing them from the previous 2 films, this seemed like an opportunity for Rob Zombie to take these characters and put them in a situation that we hadn't seen already. And going from House of a Thousand Corpse to 3 from Hell, the characters have changed drastically. A lot of people's gripes with this movie are centered around Baby and her dramatic shift in character. But I personally don't see that. If anything, I think Baby is being portrayed exactly how Baby would turn out, given her circumstances. Baby was always a little bit crazy. So to hear fans complaining that Baby is too crazy in this movie doesn't make much sense to me. You gotta remember, 3 from Hell takes place 10 years after Devil's Rejects. And for the majority of that time, Baby was kept in solitary confinement. So yes, Baby is going to be a little crazier than we've ever seen her. And I personally like that about her character in this film. Something that people aren't talking about when it comes to this movie, which I think is the bigger deviation from the established character that we've gotten to know, was in Otis. In House of a Thousand Corpse and in Devil's Rejects, we know Otis to kind of be a no-nonsense, badass killing machine. But I don't know what's happened in the last 10 years in Otis's personal life or what he experienced in prison that made him super fucking chill in this movie. We've never seen Otis shoot the shit and crack jokes like we do in this movie. And yes, while it is really nice to see, again, exploring these characters in a new way, it is fun to see that side of Otis. It wasn't something that I was used to seeing. So it maybe took me out of the movie a little bit to see him that way. It did seem like he lost a bit of his vigor. Now that said, Otis does still kill with the best of them, and has plenty of that dialogue that we've come to expect from him. I was talking earlier about how the 3rd from Hell isn't Captain Spaulding. Instead, it's Baby and Otis's half-brother, Midnight Wolfman. And in the first 5 minutes of my meeting him, I was kind of like, well, that seems a little cheap. Who is this guy? Because we'd never seen him before. We also had never heard of him in the franchise. But I was actually surprised by how much chemistry he actually shared with his other 2 co-stars. I believe the love, I believe the family that's going on in this movie. 3 from Hell feels like 2 different movies. And it's evenly split right down the middle. The first half of this movie takes place in jail and around the trials that was going on surrounding the aftermath of House of a Thousand Corpse and Devil's Rejects. Something happens in the middle of this movie, and it feels like, alright, that whole storyline, we're done with that. Let's move on. We're going over here now. Which isn't something that I disliked. If anything, I did like that. It felt like I got 2 movies in one. But the shift is a little dramatic. When you find out what's about to happen going into the second half, you start to anticipate the road there. But there is no road. It's almost a blink and you'll miss it thing. And they're in the second half of the movie doing the thing that they said they wanted to do in that first half. Which is one of the things that I actually don't like about this movie. More than once in this film, they're kind of just like, hey, let's go do this thing. Done, we did it. I would have liked to see that. And it does happen about 2 or 3 times in this film where you just don't. There's a couple of cool things in this movie that happen as well. A lot of cool cameos. Danny Trejo's back for a little bit, reprising his role from Devil's Rejects, which as short as it is, actually plays into the bigger plot of what happens in this film. So I thought that was cool. The carryovers from these movies aren't very significant, so to have something be so big from the last one, I like that. Good job, Rob Zombie. You've seen it all over all of the promotions and shit, so it doesn't feel like a spoiler to talk about. Indian Baby is a badass. That is something that I hope they make a figure of so I can collect at some point. But her, when she has that headpiece on and that bow and arrow, she's fucking kicking ass in this film. And I appreciate that. Something I didn't like about this film. Seems like a trick that was carried over from Devil's Rejects. If you didn't enjoy the CGI blood scenes in Devil's Rejects, you're gonna be pretty disappointed in this one. Because the CGI blood is flowing. And don't get me wrong, there's some scenes that it makes total sense that they would use CGI blood. Like at some point there's a naked woman and she gets shot and you see the bullets come out the back of her. And it's like, okay, yeah, I can see why they needed to CGI bullets out of that. But horror movie 101, practical effects all the way. The scenes where people are wearing clothes and they're getting shot up with bullets or they're getting stabbed, it was a disappointment to see CGI blood coming out, and it's noticeable. I've heard a lot of people also complaining about the look of this movie. That is not a personal gripe of mine. I actually thought the movie looked just fine. But because it is filmed at a higher quality, when those scenes with the CGI happen, it's very noticeable. But that could just be me. I'm a messy, bloody, scene kind of guy. And nothing gets the job done like practical effects. Carrying on the tradition from the first 2 movies, 3 from Hell has an amazing soundtrack. I found myself Shazamming a couple of times. And those are going to be jams that I play in the car going forward thinking about this movie. So 3 from Hell, does it hold up to the standards of House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects? The truth is, it doesn't have to. We have Devil's Rejects. We have House of a Thousand Corpses. Those movies did so well what they set out to do that I don't feel incomplete or that I needed more of that. If anything, that is something that I give 3 from Hell credit for. It is a movie that I didn't know that I needed. Although in the horror community, this is something that was sought after for years. I did enjoy the end result, but that is based on the fact that I am a fan of the first 2 movies. Watching this movie and taking it in at face value, there's not a lot of memorable things to take away from it. But because I don't need to look at it with that perspective, this is fun. It is great to see these characters back again. It's nice to see them on screen. It's great to see Bill Moseley talking about cutting off titties and making pornos and being the devil. There's nostalgia here that I am all too game for. I know at the end of Devil's Rejects, we thought that that was the last that we were going to see of these characters. This does feel like the end of these characters. 3 from Hell was a nice addition to marry into this trilogy, but I do feel like if Rob Zombie was to make a 4th, it would be beating a dead horse. 3 is all you need. And I'm happy with this 3rd companion piece to 2 movies that I already loved. But did you guys see 3 from Hell? What did you think? Could you see more in the Firefly saga? Whatever you think, comment below, subscribe, and hit the bell so that way you know when I upload my next review. Peace, video creeps.